Welcome everyone. Today's class is going to be awesome, right? If you were here yesterday, we made some shrimp, and we're going to make a dish with those shrimp today. So if you're tuning in from Instagram or YouTube, hello, welcome. If this is your first time here, make sure to follow me on whatever platform you're on, and also hit that bell to be notified when we go live for our next cooking class. I do these classes every Thursday, and they're not really quite prepared all the time. Like, I don't know what I'm cooking until I spin a wheel of food. But I will say that I'll be here every Thursday at 1 p.m. Sometimes do extra classes too. So let's get things rolling. Let me change my view here. All right, so these are our ingredients, right? We have avocado oil, shrimp, peeled and diced celery, tomatoes, coconut yogurt, some dill, parsley, lemon, juice, sea salt, smoked paprika, and we have some extra herbs to garnish, as well as a avocado. This dish came together because I was at the beach and I was like, what would I want to eat on a very hot day? So this is what came to mind. Let's go from the beginning. We need to make sure that we have our celery peeled and chopped. If you can digest celery without an issue, you can skip the cooking portion, but we're going to peel, dice, and cook this celery. So let's turn our heat on. We're gonna go for like a medium low heat. We're gonna peel our celery. I feel like a lot of people have a problem peeling celery. I mean, I do. And also, another thing I want to say, thank you so much for all the patrons who are supporting this channel and allowing me to buy these ingredients and do this for you every Thursday. So if that is you and you're here right now, thank you very much. So we start off by peeling the outside. The curved side's easier to peel. The inside's always harder. So what I like to do is I will cut it right down the center to make it flat, right? This makes it flat, makes it more manageable. I put it on a flat surface, and sometimes I have to start it out by like wiggling it on, like that. And then once I can get a grip with it, I can just like peel it on the cutting board. And a lot of you are probably, why are you peeling this? Like, I don't have time for this. Listen, I have to peel this stuff. If I don't peel it, it's gonna come out like rocket fuel. And we don't want that here. If you can handle it, go for it. But some of our guts aren't strong enough. There's days when it can handle it fairly well, but other days it's not so great. So once we peel it, I'm gonna toss this stuff to the side. We're gonna compost all those things. I have fruit flies from all these wildflowers we have in our apartment. They're driving me insane. Okay, so now take your celery, chop it in half. So I chop them in half so they're more manageable. If they're really long, if they're longer than your knife, you should cut them in half. So we're just gonna do like a very small dice on these. You can throw if you have a very small food processor, you can just throw it in there if you want. Okay. We're gonna add a little oil to our pan. And we're going to, I don't have my scraper. We just want a little oil, not a lot, because it will stick if we don't have anything in there at all. Right? You can add a little salt. And from there, we are going to let that cook, and we can start cutting our shrimp. I pre-cut a lot of these in advance because it's just going to take a while. But you can see these are the shrimp we had yesterday. And all we're going to do is slice them in half. And the reason why we're slicing them in half is because we want to know where the shrimp's at. Because if it's just diced and everything's the same size, it's going to be hard to differentiate what's what. And it also gives you an opportunity to see if there's any extra residual stuff in the tail. And you can, I mean, if you want to cut them in whatever size you like, go for it. You can leave them whole too. All right, so that's cut. We're going to add it to our bowl for now, right? Set that aside for a moment. Now let's chop our tomatoes up. So these are peeled, deseeded tomatoes. And we're gonna chop them up to where they're like large dice. Something that's just a little bit more, it's like smaller, and it'll go throughout the entire salad, and it won't be like a huge surprise. If you like them big, go for it. So we're going to add those to our bowl too. Let's have that there. And now we're going to add, let's add our yogurt. This is coconut yogurt. This is Coco June. It's probably one of my favorite yogurts out there. It doesn't have any extra additive anything. It just has probiotics, coconut, and I believe that's it. All right, so let's add this. We're gonna give it a quick mix real fast, just so everything's kind of like coated before we add our spices. We turn off our heat to our celery. Now what you're gonna do with the celery is you're going to put it in the fridge so you can cool it down real quick. You don't wanna add this while it's warm, because yogurt that's hot kind of tends to like leach and like move freely versus stay like nice and coated to everything. So after it's cool, you can add it in. And I really like celery in salads, especially seafood, because it's very fresh, it's very bright. It's got botanicals in it that you don't get from a lot of other veggies, and it tastes good. So once that's mixed up nice and well, we're going to add our salt, lemon juice. So this is about a teaspoon of salt. Remember, if using other types of salt, you gotta be careful. The recipe I have is for sea salt, like fine sea salt. If you're using a very coarse salt or very like heavy mineral salt, you're gonna have different measurements. So my suggestion is to add different salts and taste it as you're going. Let's add our lemon juice. This is 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. This is going to give the salad nice depth. You don't have to add this if you don't want to. I'm going to give it a nice stir. This looks fantastic. We used to do something very similar at a restaurant I worked at, but we had like lots of like grapes in it, like roasted grapes, which were really nice. So if you want to like add some extra stuff, that could be a good thing to add, maybe to pair well with those tomatoes. And now we're going to add our herbs. So this is about, it's like it's my handful. My hands are pretty big, so this is a billy handful of dill. And we're probably only going to use about half of it in totality. Let me change this camera angle for you so you can see more. When you're cutting herbs, like we've said in the past, just cut to where you're kind of barely cutting You want to cut like you're cutting nothing. And what I mean by that is just kind of rocking it as closely as you can without running it over a lot. Once you run over herbs a lot, they'll start to get really wet and bruised, and that chlorophyll that gets broken down starts smelling and tasting really funky. All right, so we're going to add our dill. We're going to save some for garnish to the side. So just put it off to the side. It's about a tablespoon that we added. Let's add our parsley. So this isn't the best looking parsley in the world, but we're going to make it happen. And the way I like to cut parsley is similar, but I want to make sure I get a nice grip on it. So when you are, let's get a nice shot of this. When you are putting it together, this herbs suck, huh? Shout out to the produce department. When you're grabbing your parsley, you want to kind of keep it taut, almost like you're making sushi, but you don't want to crush it. So right now I'm putting very little pressure on it, and I'm going to do the same thing as we did with the dill. Just kind of like you're barely cutting it at all. This will give you a nice chiffonade, nice slices, and we're going to run over it one more time. So not a lot, just a little bit. And then we're going to add about half of this, which is about a tablespoon, to our salad. Save the rest over here. And give it a mix. We're going to give it a mix and give it a taste. All right. This is good. Nice and smoky. The coconut yogurt really helps coat the shrimp. And all those other ingredients we put in are able to stick to the shrimp too, because the celery is nice and small. The tomatoes are more of like an additional bonus, which is really nice. And then we're going to plate it. So for plating, I would suggest just getting a regular bowl, spoon it on in, and we're going to save some extra, like we save these garnishes to put on top. And I'm going to add some avocado to this because it's going to be fantastic. You can serve this as a side. You can serve it as a main if you want. It's really good. If you're able to eat bread, this would be great on like a roll. So you can do like these, instead of a lobster roll, you can do a shrimp roll. But I like how the shrimp are sliced down the middle so you can see where the shrimp are. That's very good. So just a little dill on top, a little parsley. Remember how we were talking about like the celery having botanical flavors? The parsley does the same. And because our garden around the corner, our community garden, is so like lush, we're going to add some more herbs. I didn't want to put basil in the recipe because I feel like whenever you get basil from the grocery store, it's always hit or miss. I feel like you can get dill, parsley, and all these other things on the regular, but not so much basil. Most of the time you come out with like this little thing of basil, you try to replant it, and it's 50-50 if it's going to live or not, depending on who's got the green thumb in the household. So we got some scallions. We're going to take our basil. The way I like to cut basil is I'll take the biggest pieces first, add them on the bottom, and put everything else on top. So that way I don't, bruise the basil, because basil will bruise easily, and keeps things nice and organized. You can also store them like this too with like a very moist towel. Just make sure you keep them away from very cold drawers. So when you get it to this point, stack it up. And I'm trying to figure out if I tend to turn it over so they don't move everywhere. And we're gonna cut it into like squares. So I'll do like 1, 2, 3. This is gonna prevent it from turning colors, at least throughout the entire thing, and we're just left with this really nice chunky basil. So you want to cut basil as little as possible. Add some scallions on top, and we are finished, guys. So if you want this recipe, it's in the description on YouTube, as well as the chat. If you're on Instagram right now watching, you should be here. You know that you should be here because you're looking right at my screen and my monitor. But if you're on Instagram, you don't like to be anywhere else, there is a link in the bio that says CCC live streams, also Chill Bill's recipes. You can find all this stuff there. I'm gonna come to you next Thursday with another recipe, so stay tuned and enjoy your salad if you made it today too. Have a great one. Bye. So then now we're going to press this button. Where are we at? Where are we at? So we go BRN.